Russian military is taking chips from dishwashers and refrigerators to fix their military hardware. Russia's industry is in tatters.
Putin is now isolated from the world more than he has ever been.
Hello and welcome back. We took a little hiatus. We needed it. We were crashing out a little too much. I'm speaking for myself only, but I hope you guys had a good break for the Americans. Hope you had a happy 4th. I had a happy birthday. Thank you to all of my favorite people. Thank you, Joseph. And thank you so much, Earl, for the happy birthday wishes. Murat, how are you? It's really good to finally see you again.
I'm doing good. Thank you. It's nice to see you too. It's hot here today.
It's hot. And I think it's inappropriate for women. This is so gay and weird of me, but I think it's inappropriate for women to wear short sleeves. So I'm just dying.
Oh, you're Mrs. Conservative over here.
I'm a trad wife. I'm just waiting.
Well, happy belated birthday, America. Happy belated birthday, Sarah.
We're all celebrating. Me and America, we're celebrating our 249th.
Right.
We're really ready to go.
And so a weekend off meant that there's twice as much stuff to cover. Maybe.
We'll see. But I think we're going to start with Russia, Ukraine. There's a little bit of activity in that sector. Firstly, we had a visit. Lavrov went and visited.
И еще вот вы являетесь первым иностранным гостем для нашего курорта, и мне очень приятно, что здесь мы встречаемся с вами.
So visiting DPRK, and while he's there, Kim obviously reaffirms his support for the Russian Federation, especially in Kursk, and then he flies right over to China. I haven't really even looked at any of these visits, so why don't you take it? What are you thinking?
Well, there was news that there's some additional manpower support that DPRK is offering as well. So that is big news, of course. And with the visit, I mean, what I see is that with as one partner of Russia starts to distance itself, which we'll talk about in a later segment, there's new buddies, that Russia's making. And I think that this DPRK visits and kind of the manpower support has been kind of indicative of this growing axis, right? Or just potential budding alliance with DPRK. And of course, once they're involved, the elephant in the room is China. And kind of as we talk about, the geopolitics as being this East and West battle, and in a geographic sense, Russia is increasingly finding allies in the East as opposed to in the West, which is what the West would have hoped to happen, to try to pull them away. But yeah, I see Russia building its alliances in the East. It is its alliances with countries in the Middle East or in the West are slowly either being pulled away or withering away or what have you. But yeah, I mean, this is huge news.
We're going to get deeper into that, obviously, in our next segment. But what do you think about this sort of I've always, especially with Moscow, a little bit with St. Petersburg, but the Russians have always kind of wanted to ingratiate themselves with the West. Do you think that these are like this? Even this week, I think Trump said, "I'm mad about Putin. I'm mad," and so he keeps bombing people, and now they're kind of reinstigating, and now they're sending weapons again. Do you think?
I'll tell you like this. When I was a kid, I remember watching Russian channels with my family. This was like the early 2000s, like Putin's beginning. Like the way the narratives were positioned then in terms of portraying the West, or what the West means to us. Is the West bad? Is the West good? I mean, it really generally focused on the West. For better or for worse, that was where the attention was. There was no thought of this like kind of third worldism. Over the last couple of years, and especially since the beginning of the Ukraine war, I've seen the Kremlin make a narrative pivot where there's this increased respect for African nations, third world nations. You will show, the trips Putin takes to meet with these third world leaders. This was not stuff I saw when I was a kid on TV. And so also you'll see Putin in speeches kind of make overtures, but not in this like Kamala Harris or like, Nancy Pelosi, wearing a dashiki like sort of way, but like, he'll make a speech and he'll be very gracious towards the Muslims in Russia and stuff. And so anyway, there's this, what I see is Russia's reading the room and seeing like, we don't need to be this like, West centric and kind of disregard the East and the global South that we used to be, especially when these are, are the potential allies all sit here, in the BRICS world or in the global South. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I see. And this is kind of part of that is a DPRK visit like this, it gets a positive portrayal in the media. And, they certainly show respect for the Koreans, in a big way. And so, yeah, this to me is representative of kind of a pivoting Russia.
I agree. And you touched on BRICS, which Xi and Putin, neither of them went. Maybe you want to elaborate a little bit more on that. But we also have a visit from Putin coming up. He's going to China to celebrate their victory over Japan. So we're seeing this pivot and this, I don't say it's newly found because it was always there, but this stress on this budding these relationships with these civilizational states. Do you think Russia's sort of coming into their own and being like, maybe we're not really that European and we're more of an Eastern unique civilizational state?
Yeah, in Russia, I mean, I don't think Russians lie to themselves. Even if they felt themselves kind of more European in like an anthropological sense and somewhat cultural, they did always see a distinction, right? Like there is a very wide gulf between the Eastern Europe and then the countries of Western Europe. So I think that there wasn't a sort of naivete to it, but yeah, I do think that kind of people's own perceptions of these countries and the idea of working with them has probably opened up, and a lot of that is to do with this narrative building. When you portray leaders or countries as strong, as our allies, and kind of show them with respect, people are amenable to that. And so yeah, it's probably not so much that they think like maybe we're not so West centric, but sometimes you just kind of have to navigate as as the waves are coming at you, in the ocean. And so, if you're seeing the situation as this and you rationally got to pivot, you're going to pivot. And as you pivot, you'll cope too. You'll tell yourself, you kind of self-rationalize it. And so I think that's what's going on. But so far it's rational. Like that part is rational from Russia. I'll be a bit more critical in the next segment, but this part makes sense.
Yeah, and I also think it's important to know. And we talked a lot about the criticism, while Iran was under attack with their war, the 12-day war, and kind of like where are the S-400s, where are the Su-35s, and that decision was highly affected by what both parties thought how the West would react if either of those deals went through. And now we're seeing more deals, especially now that China's stepping up. I think that kind of emboldens Russia a little bit more now that China's kind of, yeah, we'd be willing to sell them J-10 Charlies or whatever they're called. I think they're J-10 Charlies, but we'll be willing to sell them jets. I mean, North Korea is saying, yeah, we'll give them a nuke, like this sort of, and I think that's kind of emboldening Russia to maybe like, oh, maybe we're not really completely alone in this. Because I think that the fight against Ukraine. I mean, we joke, we always say, oh, Russia's so isolated, but they kind of are in a way in their war. They're kind of isolated until Kim took the plunge. Well, it took some convincing of the Russians, but until the DPRK came in actively, I think that really helped to open things up. Plus, just the coverage of the SMO, I think, has changed the way that we look at the East and how we look at the people. And maybe we'll just end this segment with the BRICS thing. Someone in the audience thankfully mentioned that the security, because of the Iran war, was really, really, really hyped up. But we know that Putin didn't go because a Brazilian judge said he would arrest him or execute the warrant for his arrest. And Xi didn't go either, probably some engagement or something else in Southeast Asia.
So was it a judge or was it Lula?
No, it was a judge. And then Lula said, well, I can't really do anything about the judiciary. And it's like, okay, Lula, like, are you kidding me? So I mean, it's not important that it's not important that Putin goes. It's just, I guess it was just interesting that that's the reason why.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that, like, and it was 30,000 that the DPRK provided.
Yeah, and I think they're going to send more now. Yeah, I think they're going to send more.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I hadn't thought of the Russians as isolated. In a way, you're right, but yeah, I mean, the DPRK has been this is crucial, getting some reps in for wartime for that military because they haven't had it since the Korean War. So you start to wonder of like, okay, they'll be more seasoned, so like what as that axis forms or whatever, they'll be ready to go for again if they need to. They'll be ready to go on South Korea if they need to. Like you start to like look at all the possibilities that stuff like this opens up. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to like BRICS, it's some of these things are hard. Some of these coalitions are hard to hold, and Lula's or the Brazilian judge is a good example of things that go wrong, and you're like, what the hell, like, and so. Anyway, you have to make use of your neighbors, right? Like the countries that you're next to that you can diplomatically work with. Stuff like Brazil, stuff like, I don't know, South Africa will be harder for Russia, these other nations in BRICS, because these are really kind of outside the sphere, and it's really like a big jump over there. But, North Korea, China, the Central Asia, like these are the countries that Russia has to lock down, and you can't let them slip.
Yeah, I think they've been working quite a bit, especially with Kazakhstan. I believe Uzbekistan as well. Been working with Russia, and just in the last stuff on the Russia section, an uptick. And I always like when this happens. I like to point it out, an uptick in the anti-Russian propaganda in Western media. We had a story come out, which I thought was really interesting, that Russia was going to import like 1 million Indians or something crazy. I don't know why they did that. I guess maybe to throw, because everybody was mad about the H-1Bs that are still going through. Maybe it was for that. And then a crazy Axios story comes out, and it's like, Putin has said that he doesn't think that Iran should enrich uranium, that he's basically like on the side of Israel. And the foreign ministry comes out today and says none of that is true at all. We would never tell them to accept any deal with the United States. And they said it's another dirty, politicized campaign that is being launched to escalate tensions around the Iranian nuclear program. Do you have any thoughts on that before we switch over?
Well, I'm sure you notice, because it's easy to do a lot of noticing, that there's been this heavy push the last few months of this, like, did you know who Israel's biggest ally is? It's actually Russia. Yeah, Israel loves Russia. Russia loves Jews. And so it's like, we're just been bombarded with this by like the usual suspects, right? And and we know who they are, like on Twitter at least. But yeah, they're
Habiba, he's talking about you, Habiba.
Well, they're going super hard on this notion, and if you talk to them, I mean, you'll swear that like Russia's been like providing weapons and whatever.
Exactly. They're like, you know how many Russians live in Israel?
Yeah, it's a Russian-speaking country now.
You know how many Jews speak Russian?
Did you know they've changed the makeup and the values of the country now that Russian Jews make up half of?
Did you guys know they have street signs in Russian in Tel Aviv? Anyway,
these are not like the liberal Brooklyn Jews. These are conservative Russian Jews that'll beat your ass. Yeah,
Chabadnik Russian Jews.
Oh my god, no, the Chabad. Yeah, Chabad.
Yeah.
A word I definitely knew before yesterday.
How about Nikki? How about Nikki? All right, anyway, before we
Yes.
get demonetized again, let's switch it
Anyway,
over.
we had to get that out of our system. Anyway, that drives me crazy. But that narrative, and that story is surely, a part of that narrative machine. That I mean, they've been working overtime, and yeah, I mean, Russia had to sort of take a ginger stance, in the Iran matter because they didn't necessarily they were not obligated to join, and they didn't. They have their own thing that they're dealing with. But anyway, that sort of that's lack of action or whatever has opened the door for people to be like, well, remember when Russia had that meeting, what was it, like a few months ago, when basically they got talked into tell Iran, like they basically got cooked on Iran in a sense. And so they had met with Israel and they told Iran, to um what actually, Sarah, like I'm like blanking right now. What was the story a couple months ago when basically Russia made some concession in regards to Iran on Israel's behalf? Was it in regards to the uranium program?
Yeah, it was.
But it was like a statement. Like it wasn't like a
No, it
treaty or
wasn't.
anything worked
It
out. Like
wasn't a thing.
it was essentially like something in writing saying like, yeah, we'll back you up on this, blah blah. But anyway, like stuff like that is where people like will sink into that and then pretend like Russia's Israel's biggest ally or whatever, and the U.S. is just being pushed out of Israel apparently.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. There's a weird narrative has been being spun.
and it's bad faith. I mean, that's all it is.
It's been that Russia's trying to push the United States out of Israel and the region, and also there's been the also narrative that Israel's trying to pivot. They're looking for a new sort of puppet master or a new sort of sponsor, and that would be more naturally would be Russia, which is I don't know that that's very natural.
Yeah, well, the parasite is looking for a new host. It needs a new host body to feed off of.
Yeah, the host is dying. Anyway, all right. Before we get banned and put into El Salvador prison. This video, interestingly enough, from Soloviev, which we all know is the Russian psychic, the Russian oracle, sadly is no longer with us. But this video is from 10 years ago. So let's use this to transition.
Слушайте, мы что, не понимаем, что происходит? Идет война за коридор на Кавказе. Задача уничтожить присутствие России, влияние России. Для этой цели турецкими, британскими спецслужбами был посажен в Армении, пришедший к власти абсолютно незаконно. И непонятно, зачем признанный нашей страной. Абсолютный бес, туркол по фамилии Пашинян, который поставил задачу главную – отдать Карабах.
Sorry, it was 10 days ago. Not 10 years ago, 10 days ago. My bad. Anyway, we have that. We have what was going on. We talked about it on our last show a little bit. The Russians being arrested in Azerbaijan. We also touched on I believe Bibi made overtures to Azerbaijan. Obviously, Turkey's in on that. We have an investigation going on. I didn't upload the video because Iranians, could you guys just talk normal? Like I'm trying to translate this video, and these just Iranian civilians are talking about like drones that they saw from Azerbaijan, and it was so like flowery and like poetic. I was like, I can't translate this. This is more difficult than trying to translate Russian and getting like the meaning across. But they did see a lot of drone activity coming over the border from Azerbaijan into Iran during the attacks by Israel. We've had Bibi, I think, visited with Aliyev. We had Bezeshkian meet with Aliyev. We had Pasha Pashinyan meet with Aliyev. And then lastly, which I don't know if the video is on here or photo. Oh, yeah, there it is. Shara, Aliyev. What do you think about this? These Azerbaijani making moves. I'm going to pass it over to you. You're our resident race mixing Caucasus expert, so take it away.
So So Adil's point, the clip of the clip we started with, I mean, the narrative is so frustrating for me actually because we know that a few years ago Armenia makes this pivot to the West, and then the war unfolds, and kind of the relations have been breaking down between Armenia and Russia. And as that's happened, Russia has, and I've given them credit for this in the way they had done it. They had pivoted to Azerbaijan. Because a little quick history: Armenia and Azerbaijan were both in Russia's sphere of influence. Armenia, like, fully kind of tied to Russia. Azerbaijan, very friendly with Russia, not all the way kind of tied to them. They were making oil deals with the West, so they were kind of one foot in, one foot out, but still very friendly with Russia. And as the relations broke down, Russia sort of started to pivot towards, and started to work closer with Azerbaijan. And now, as you see this breakdown, at the end of it, it's like if Russia is sitting here thinking, okay, well, we lost Armenia, and we didn't gain Azerbaijan in exchange to that. We're losing them too. This will end up being kind of a fumble on Russia's part if this is how it ends, right? And so, what we see going on is that there's an arrest made in Russia of two ethnic Azerbaijanis, tied to organized crime. The arrests were kind of done in secret. So these guys basically get abducted out of Russia because these guys are Russian citizens,
Right.
and taken to prison in Azerbaijan. And so Russian authorities didn't like this. So the Russian authorities had arrested the Azerbaijanis that themselves, kind of as a response to it. And then after that, we see these Russian journalists arrested in Baku. And they weren't just arrested. The clip didn't really quite show it, but they were let out with their hands tied like terrorists. And I mean, you don't need to wheel out journalists like this, right? Like, not like the violent criminals. But they did. And as you saw, their faces are beaten and puffed up and bruised. So these guys got absolutely shellacked, while they were in interrogation or whatever. Azerbaijan says, these are spies. Now, I don't necessarily think these guys were spies. Now, everyone, quote unquote, could be a spy in a sense of if you know someone who knows someone and, you're being asked, for some certain information to pass along, you could, in essence, be a spy, even though that's not your main job, right? So both Russia and Azerbaijan aren't stupid. They're both aware of the network of each other's ethnic group within their own country. So where this is particularly big for Russia is that there's a large Azerbaijani diaspora there, and the Azerbaijani diaspora has come up in kind of the criminal world. So a lot of the Russian organized crime is dominated by Azerbaijanis. And furthermore, a lot of the Russian bazaars and kind of like fruit stands and sort of small businesses like that, Azerbaijanis are also very prevalent in. So now the question comes up of a, quote unquote spy network. And because you have a network of, businessmen, traders, you have a network of organized crime, and all of a sudden you have rumors of this, the drone attack from Ukraine. And there's rumors that Azerbaijan assisted in this drone attack by the truckers, getting in and getting across the country. And how do the truckers get across the country? Well, as you know, in corrupt countries, if you're a trucker, you're paying a lot of people off as you're making your routes, right? You got to pay the toll guy, you got to pay this, pay that. Who are the people you're paying? Well, you're paying the regular guys, the blue collar workers who know a guy or who know the right route or who know it. So anyway, the long story short, Russia's been kind of side-eyeing Azerbaijan, like, how much are you helping Ukraine? And, why are we getting into these spats?
Right.
I forgot to mention, in November, there's the plane shot down.
Right, the plane shot down. I was going to bring that up. Go ahead.
And if correct me if I'm wrong, Russia to this day is not. They didn't say that, they basically said that wasn't us. So
yeah,
they are deny involvement. But so anyway, there's no formal apology or kind of accountability on it. Azerbaijan's aggrieved. So anyway, this is a little different than Trump Bibi, where there's some news stories and people are like, oh, I wonder. There's some serious narratives out there now. I mean, there's real anti-Russian narratives going on in Azerbaijani media, and there's some frustrated and kind of almost treating it like a betrayal narratives in Russian media about Azerbaijanis and kind of how Azerbaijan's been behaving over the last few months. I was just talking to my dad, Sarah. My dad reminded me, well, look how much can change in a year. So last year, Putin, I forgot about this. Putin flew to Baku for Ilham Aliyev's wife's birthday.
Yeah.
Not a formal visit. He came in streetwear. And this year, Azerbaijan doesn't even come to the May 9th celebration. It's mad. It's like that's insane. And so yeah, relations have been breaking down in a real way. We have rumors about the Abraham Accords, bringing in Azerbaijan. That would be a big stretch for the Abraham Accords. It's kind of going out into the Caucasus, stretching out from the Levant. Now we're in the Caucasus. Well, speaking of the Levant and the Abraham Accords, you have Jolani visiting Baku.
Yeah.
And it's anyone's guess how that conversation went, but what else would they be talking about? I mean, what relations would Azerbaijan have with Syria other than kind of these potential talks about this broader Abraham Accords and stuff like that? Because let's say, I mean, Syria, the current regime in Syria is going to be Western aligned, and that means they may be Azerbaijan aligned, if Azerbaijan continues on this trajectory. But anyway, the development is huge. I don't think most people realize it, because what you see is a big chess piece that's being moved from finally moved from one sphere to another. And that doesn't happen often. This is a rare development. You don't see every week where one country is just deciding to wither its relations with, its former sponsor. But I think that, we've always been discussing this moment. And even Samira and I would always say that, like, when push came to shove, Azerbaijan would choose Russia. This, like, on Spaces a few months ago, when we talked about this question of the coming moment where Azerbaijan's going to have to put up or shut up for, are you going to be with Israel, or are you going to be with Russia? Like, what is going to be your actual side? You can't keep double dipping, right? And so myself, Samira, we were of the mind that Azerbaijan's going to have to pick Russia at the end of the day. If this is how it's unfolding, that may have been the incorrect guess. And I'm actually kind of stunned it's going the way it is. The most positive takes on this are that pragmatism will win the day. There's too much economic and trade and ethnic, diaspora relations that Azerbaijan and Russia have, and that kind of cooler heads will prevail as they work through this. But I don't think so. I think that this Israel-Iran matter, I think there's been a lot of lines crossed here, and also in the SMO, in Ukraine, I don't really see how we kind of just work back and Azerbaijan will just be like, hey, never mind about the Abraham Accords. Yeah, sorry, we're just going to go back. Like, I don't know. I don't see how that happens here. What do you think?
I think we have so many variables in this Azerbaijan sort of, I mean, it's hard for even Westerners that don't follow this to kind of understand where we're at. I mean, we had, you mentioned the falling apart with Armenia. Lukashenko went after Pashinyan with Aliyev. It's all very interesting. We have the plane crash. We have the 2 terrorist attacks in Iran and Ukraine. Both are being, Azerbaijan is being implicated in both. We have Shira going there to beg for oil. We know Azerbaijan supplies 40% of Israel's oil. They get their weapons to kill Armenians with it. It's so many moving parts. I don't think that I'm shocked that Aliyev is ending up in the 3 brothers, as Deep Barrett used to say. The 3 brothers is Israel, Turkey, and Ukraine, or Israel, Turkey, and Azerbaijan. So, I mean, and I think that this axis is forming as a counterweight. This whole sort of Russia, I think this kind of puts to use a Jewish word, the kibosh on the kind of Russia, Israel rumors, because Azerbaijan is driving a thorn directly into Russia's side at the behest of Israel and Turkey. I just can't see it in any other way. You?
That's a fantastic point. I forgot to mention that, but yeah, that is another great indicator here of the quagmire that the Russia-Israel or allied folks have, which is, explain this then. What is going on in Azerbaijan? I mean, if they really are, Israel's ally, then great. Seemingly everybody will be chipper and happy here, but it's not the case, because clearly this is a line Russia can't accept.
Right. And I think that it's important, and I'll point out again that Putin always refers to the Russians in Israel as Russian speakers. He never talks to them as they're ethnic Russians. They are Jews to him that speak Russian. And like, yes, that's important. But what do you think, and how strong, like realistically speaking, in this scenario, as these two axes start to form and inevitably, do you think that Russia will be fine with kind of, we've got to go and kind of, we have to take care of the mainland. We can't be worried about diaspora communities. Or do you think that the sort of, I mean, there is a good amount of Israeli and Jewish influence in Russia. There's still relations with Israel, not military really, but a lot of economic ties thanks to the corrupt oligarchs. But do you think that this could actually sever what's left?
Yeah, this is a fantastic question. So my experience with Russian Jews tells me that, okay, I don't want to, speak for, this is what Russian Israeli Jews are like, but just my personal experience from knowing Russian Jews, I would think that a majority of the ones in Israel would be more loyal to Israel than they are to Russia.
They are 100%.
It's not quite a Russian diaspora, like say the Russian diaspora in the US, which misses Russia. It's like, no, the Russian Jews, they perceive themselves as returning to their homeland, and they don't see Russia as their homeland and them just being temporarily displaced. They see themselves as, we're Jews back in our homeland, and Russia, cool, thanks, maybe we still like them or whatever, but there isn't this like, oh man, who do I choose? What's my real name? It's gonna be an easy decision. As you correctly said, to underline, these are Russian speakers. In the Russian language, there is a distinction between Ruski, which is Russian, like ethnic Russians, and Rosyani, which are the Russian nationals. And so, as you said, these people wouldn't be called Ruski; they would just be Jews. Their ethnicity is Jews. And so that particular distinction is capable. I think people really overcook this whole like the proportion of the Israelis that are Russian Jews, because it's like they see themselves as Israelis. Especially if they've been there more than one generation.
Not only that, it's that this weird, Russia always inherits all of the bad, sometimes the good, but all of the bad from the Soviet Union. So these people are not necessarily Russians. A lot of them are from Pale of Settlement. A lot of them are from the Caucasus. A lot of them are the mountain Jews. We're Russian Jews. And, and it's like, they don't have an allegiance to Russia because they're not from Russia. They're from the Soviet Union and whatever SSR they were in, or whatever loyalty they had. They don't have a loyalty to Russia, the state of Russia, the Federation.
In fact, for a lot of them, their experience in Israel will probably be the first time where they're sort of just seeing each other as the same Jews. Because back in Russia, there would have been a distinction between, the mountain Jews and the Pale of Settlement Jews. I mean, they'd both be Jews, but they wouldn't just be like, brother, we are same. That wouldn't be the case, right? So like Israel, the sort of assimilation process in Israel would be the first time that they see themselves as kin in this way. It's just they would not have the same sort of unified, collective, hey, we're all Russian Jews, and we're all in it for Russia. And it's a complete.
They didn't go back and fight for Russia. They went back and fought for Ukraine. And who came and fought for the Israelis in Gaza? It wasn't Russians. It was Ukrainians. Azov came to Gaza to kill Palestinians. When Iran bombed in True Promise 3, they bombed a Ukrainian cafe, not a Russian cafe. So, I think that it's important for people to understand who's actually working together and what's going on. And I think the two terrorist attacks are like one of the best examples of why this sort of Russia-Israel axis just doesn't work. There's a Mossad and an SBU and an Azerbaijan sort of collective in the Caucasus and Ukraine, and they ran two terrorist attacks on Iran and Russia. Huge terrorist attacks. That one triggered World War III pretty much. If you didn't think we were in it before. So I think that people need to be more mindful of that. And then of course, where would we be? It's 1 year later, 1 year ago today, as Richard Spencer says, 1 year ago today, Trump was almost assassinated, but he survived so he could ruin America. That's what Spencer said.
Shout out, Richard, man. That was a good tweet.
So it is 1 year ago today. The chosen one, he's still with us. we're kind
I
of
don't
asked
remember.
what.
What were your tweets like on that day? I just don't remember. But do you
Dude,
remember your reaction to that?
I thought it was surreal. I wouldn't want to comment because I never want to comment on sensitive stuff like that. I don't like to get MAGA in a twist because they have already got enough crap going on. But I said when that happened, I said he's going to get elected. That just kind of sealed the election for him. But I was like, this is going to produce a very interesting messianic complex, and it's almost as if I'm psychic because we're here. And he said more than once, like, God saved me to do this. I'm the chosen one. It's really interesting.
I remember being stunned because I thought there would always be like this wonder, right? Because when you're a kid, you learn about like JFK, blah blah, and you think like, okay, assassinations haven't happened in a while, or even attempts, and you just think like, not that you look forward to it, but you just wonder like, are there even going to attempt this ever again? Like, and so this came sooner than I thought. I really didn't. I thought we were past assassinations. I thought that security had reached a point where it was so tight and so good that we just mastered, picking these people off. It was just, I remember being stunned by the news, and trying to make sense of it. But yeah, I mean, the picture of him with the blood coming from his ear and him going like,
That's so great.
USA, yes. It's like
Fight. For what?
yeah, and of course you have the people, that are like, Trump cut his ear with a blade, and it was all this well-timed thing, and so it's like I don't buy that, of course. I do think that there was a real attempt, but yeah, I mean that had there was question marks about how all that unfolded and stuff, but yeah, I think the biggest takeaway was between October 7th and between the assassination attempt, I think those sealed Trump's victory.
I agree. Also going on with Trump this week is his, we're not going to get too deep into it because I'm sure you guys are sick of it, but obviously the Epstein cover up this morning, it comes out that Ghislaine, obviously, I mean, isn't this woman, kind of entitled to a pardon? Who did she traffic people to? If there's no file, no list, no nothing.
Right. And so this is today I heard like the Epstein people, like this is their last gasp. They're just like they're still holding on to any kind of news that comes out of this. So I mean it's of course an interesting question. I think that Ghislaine will come off easier on the. I think essentially like Epstein hung himself, we know that, but I think that she'll get her sentence, she'll get what she'll get, and this will all just kind of go away slowly. I really don't think there's any more developments to come out of this.
I don't think so either, and they're really kind of silencing it. I do think we might have. I think we should. No, we didn't upload the video, but the video of Trump in the Oval Office with Pam Bondi is just bonkers. But I think I'll try to read this whole post. I read it last night, but this came out yesterday, I think. What's going on with my boys and some cases gals? They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is doing a fantastic job. We're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world. And selfish people are trying to hurt it all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. Is he jealous of Jeffrey Epstein? For years, it's Epstein over and over again. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Obama and crooked Hillary Clinton? Comey, Brennan, and the losers and criminals of the Biden administration who conned the world with the Russia hoax, 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell, and more. They created the Epstein files just like they created the fake Hillary Clinton, Christopher Steele dossier that they used on me. And now my so-called friends, in quotes, he's butthurt, he's really upset, are playing right into their hands. Why didn't these radical left lunatics release the Epstein files if there was anything that could have hurt MAGA? Why didn't they use it? They haven't even given up on the JFK or Martin Luther King Jr. files, no matter how much success we have had securing the border, deporting criminals, fixing the economy, energy dominance, a safer world where Iran will not have nuclear weapons. It's never enough for some people. We are about to achieve more in 6 months than any other administration has achieved in over 100 years, and we have so much more to do. We are saving our country and making America great again, which will continue to be our complete priority. The left is imploding. Kash Patel and the FBI must be focused on investigating more stolen fraud, rigged elections, crap like that. Let Pam Bondi do her job. She's great. The 2020 election was stolen. They tried to do the same thing in 2024. That's what she's looking into. This is the best line of the whole thing. Our country was 1 year ago, our country was dead. Now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. Let's keep it that way. We are so hot, America.
It's so hot right now.
So hot. You're so hot. Beautiful America.
It's like America. It's so hot right now. Just popping off. Yeah, well, first off, we know that Trump definitely wrote this one, right? Because it's just impossible that anyone else would have written that, between the punctuation and the overuse of quotes and capitalizations and stuff. What I love, my favorite thing that Trump does, and I say this as not, someone who's not MAGA or Trump fan, my favorite thing that Trump does is when he throws his own under the bus, because like it's happened 100 times by now, but it's like each and every time, like they're so unwitting in that, like, this is exactly what's going to happen. So he's out here over being like, hey, Kash Patel, why don't you go do some real work instead of falling for the psyop from the dead? It's just like, what? Like, the psyop, this is what your base wants. Like,
literally,
like, your base cares about the Epstein files more than anyone.
And then the weird mention of JFK and MLK in there. Nobody even brought them up until you said you were going to release the files. Like, I don't understand. You're the one who made the promise, and now you say, why are you still talking about this? Why are you even asking?
I think like someone like Dan Bongino, who is apparently resigning. I think someone like Bongino, who was very big on the Epstein files as well, right? He comes into office. He's been podcasting for a few years. He probably loves podcasting, makes good money on it, and then he comes to the cabinet. He kind of got wooed by the prestige. But then he's like, damn, like, I got to do like real work and stuff. Yeah, and I could just be podcasting. And so, like, especially seeing this, he's probably like, all right, I'm out, especially if you're just going to suck up to Pam Bondi and just defend her at every turn. What do you think about him writing for Pam Bondi that hard, who's doing a fantastic job, by the way?
First of all, we'll get into more Pam Bondi, but there's rumors that Dan Bongino fled Washington, D.C. last night. He was so livid. Dan Bongino, I'm not a Dan Bongino girl. I don't really watch a lot of streamers, honestly, unless I find them exceptionally smart. I don't watch really a lot of Culture War or American streamers. But Dan Bongino hung his hat on the Epstein files and as a podcaster, which is fine. Whatever your cause or your kind of niche is, that was his thing. And now he's the deputy thing. And he's like, I'm accountable to my audience. And I'm looking at this and I can't really do anything about this. I'm learning that everything that I said was maybe true or close to it. And they're showing me, maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's part of it to be like, this is how it really is. Even if you're podcasting about all of this, it doesn't ever come to fruition. We never get the bad guys.
Bongino's a funny guy because, and you're right, like he really hung his hat on the Epstein files. He's not a dumb guy like say like Tim Pool, but he's a bit of like a kind of a hack in the sense that he's kind of has narrow focus. Every time I see Bongino, I can't help but remember I want to say this was like 2017, 2018. Early in, like a bit before his podcast show blew up, I remember he had this promotional clip that he put out where he didn't literally drink his own urine, but he made it like the gag was that he was he was peeing into a cup and then drinking. Like it was I forgot what the joke was. Like he was making fun of something, but he like that was the gag, and everyone was just like, that is weird. That's not a punchline. You're just like drinking your own urine. Anyway, I like every time I see him, I just remember that moment, and I'm like, I can't take you serious. You drank your own urine. Anyway,
do you have a problem with Bear Grylls then too? He also drank his own urine, but it was
Bear Grylls was out in the wilderness, and Dan Bongino was doing it just like on.
He was also out in the wilderness in these streets trying to fight these child traffickers. He got subverted by the system, and then following that Truth Social post, Trump hops on with his daughter-in-law exclusive interview. She got a $5 million contract from Fox and Friends, but this is just a clip.
You're talking about people not remembering. I don't think anyone will ever forget President Donald J. Trump. But when history looks back on this time in our country, when history looks back on you, how would you like to be remembered?
A good person, but a person that saved our country. I really believed our country was going down for the fall. I don't know if it ever could have come back. It was very close to the edge. And I really would like to be known as the man that saved our country.
Well, I think you've started off on the right track there.
So far.
But if you ask him to explain, like, save from what and what was the saving, like in what moment we were saved and what was the change? Like, it's anyone's guess. So it's just like, okay, I mean, you made the same trajectory. Like, my whole life, it's been Bill Clinton, Trump, Obama. Bill Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, right? And it's like nothing. The program never changed. We were all on one trajectory from administration to administration, and like I'm not seeing where this steering or redirecting is.
Neither do I. I try not to put too much of my own opinion when I post on the big account because I have my personal account, but I just posted it and I was like, from what? Like, what did you save us from? I feel like we are so much worse off. Then we had the tariff list come out yesterday. It was like a mile long. Everybody who is now a BRICS partner, not even members, just partners, all got tariffed. The EU all got tariffed. Crazy Southeast Asian countries got tariffed. South Africa got tariffed at the highest amount. I think Serbia got a tariff. All of these really interesting countries. And then I went and looked at the economic report and I realized that the only reason June reported a boost in economy or a surplus was because of these weird smoke and mirrors tariffs. So we're now using tariffs to sort of float the economy.
And what's particularly annoying is he posted his letter to Canada, in regards to that 35% one.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, those like women posting their L's accounts. We should have presidents posting their W's, which is where our presidents post what they sent to another world leader and be like, yeah, look what I did. This is what I said to him. It's so like fake and gay. It's annoying.
And even the Canadians, I was kind of shocked at the reaction. I mean, Chai and Bond were like, and then somebody else came into it. I can't remember her name. And I was joking around like we do and saying, you're Canadian. Your opinion on this doesn't matter, right? About America. And we weren't even talking about the tariff, but she lost it. She was like, you guys are ruining our country. Like, this is really taking us down. You guys don't understand. And I was like, whoa. Like, I didn't even realize that, like, Canadians aren't really that hysterical of people, and even Vaughn says the same thing. He's like, this is fucking us up. This is fucking us up. I think it's wild. And then I saw a poll, because like we said in space, I'm a poll whore, but like P-O-L-L, not P-O-L-E. And this poll said that both Mexico and Canada say the United States is the number one threat to their country by a huge margin. It was 60-something% of Canadians and a high in the 50s of Mexicans think America is their number one threat.
But if you think about it, like when you really just ponder it, who else would they? Because Canada, what other threats does Canada have other than U.S.
India and China? that they're kind of just letting in.
Actually, you're right. Yeah, Khalistan. Yeah. But the Mexico, I mean, you could probably think of some, but Mexico probably too. Mexico is worried about what U.S. policy is going to be in regards to immigration, in regards to the cartels. So Mexico is thinking our highest chance of being at war with someone is literally just the U.S. It's not, Guatemala or Nicaragua or, the Caribbean or whatever. It's literally going to be the U.S. So there really is no other answer in that poll. It's just that probably the numbers were going even higher than before.
I was kind of surprised at the Canadian one. I think before they had listed their number one threats as kind of like an Iran, China, very stereotypical Western thing. I'm not sure about Mexico, but I'm pretty sure Canada had somebody from like in that sort of axis over there. We also have one of my favorites, Lady G, who's back.
Well, just stay tuned for tomorrow's announcement. The idea of America selling weapons to help Ukraine is very much in play. We've given Ukraine a lot. We've given them money. We've given them military aid. We now have a minerals agreement with Ukraine that's worth trillions of dollars. So I don't want to get ahead of the president, but stay tuned about seized assets. The Europeans want to limit the interest on the assets to go to Ukraine. Secretary Bessent wants to go further. Stay tuned about a plan to go after the seized assets more aggressively. Stay tuned for a plan where America will begin to sell to our European allies tremendous amount of weapons that can benefit Ukraine. Putin has calculated that we would get tired and Europe would get weary. He made a huge mistake. NATO is bigger and stronger, and we're more committed than ever to make sure he does not take Ukraine by force. So Congress is on the verge of passing the most consequential sanction package in the history of the country. It will give President Trump tools he doesn't have today, a literal sledgehammer. And the big offender here is China, India, and Brazil. India buys oil from Russia cheap and resells it. That's despicable. I've talked to President Trump. He said last week it's time to move. He's tried to entice Putin to the table, but my goal is to end this war, and the only way you're going to end this war is to get people who prop up Putin, make them choose between the American economy and helping Putin, and you can only have one negotiator, and that's going to be President Trump with maximum flexibility to end this war. China, India, and Brazil, you're about to get hurt big time if you keep helping Putin.
I think that was important. Trump, see, everybody says, and you and I even agree, you a little bit more so, but I've said, BRICS is kind of a joke. BRICS is kind of, a non-factor. And I'm seeing President Trump start wars in places that are nodes of either BRICS or nodes of Belt and Road. They come out with a tariff list that covers everybody in BRICS. And then Trump makes a post that says, if you join BRICS, you will be tariffed. And now he names them China, India, Brazil. So why do you think that these guys think that BRICS is even a threat? Are we really that bad off that BRICS is a threat to the United States? I think that says more. I think it says more about the weakness of the United States than the strength of BRICS.
I think, to get tinfoil hat on, I think this might be the new generation of neocons that are, looking out at the world, and they're seeing the current landscape of our wars, and they're gearing up for what other ones. Forever wars is just our hustle at this point. Like that's what it is, right? And so they are gluttonous essentially for these, and so I think that's what they're looking at. I wanted to ask you. I mean, it's like dizzying to try to follow what we're doing with Ukraine, or what
we're back to giving them weapons. We're back, yeah.
Yeah, it's like if I didn't know better, I'd have thought MAGA ran on arming Ukraine at this point.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And it changes week to week. And then he had just pulled aid like recently. And then Russia had that strong bombardment of Kiev immediately after. And then now here we back are again at this moment. And so I can't even make sense. What are your friends like in Eastern Europe or anyone over there, any contacts you have? What's it like for them when they're hearing this flip-flopping on the narratives, on American foreign policy? Like for people that actually were sort of leaning into or hoping for this change, how is this being welcomed over there?
Speaking, we have Aria, our amazing producer. He's in Slovenia, which is the Balkans, more like South Central Eastern Europe. But they're pushing through referendums to leave NATO. They've had enough. They are done. We're calling it Slovexit. It's this new.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're joking about it, but they really are doing that. And I think that, Slovenia is a little baby, and, Slovenia has been very, not anti-Israel, but they've been very stuck in their ground about no more, like the arming of Ukraine, the arming of Israel, giving them, supporting them in their endeavors. They have a seat on the Security Council right now. So, they're engaging. And I think that if Slovenia does this could trigger maybe a few others, i.e. some of the smaller guys, Slovakia, maybe Croatia, maybe some of and then maybe the Romania, and maybe not now. They have this kind of Western leaning president, but it could kind of spiral. So I think that they're kind of getting sick of it. I think the only people, I'm not speaking for the populations, I'm just speaking for the governments, are the Central and Western Europeans. And even Spain has one foot out the door. I think it's mostly Central and Western Europeans. The Eastern Europeans, other than the Baltics, are not really thrilled about this, except for Poland because they make money off of it. So I think that the Eastern Europe is really, really ready to be done, I think. And now they're looking at a war in Iran, and Eastern Europe is saying, all I see are, and no offense, all I see are Muslims coming into my country now. Like, that's really what they're really worried about. And they know that they're figuring out that, oh, this war in Ukraine also contributes to that. And not to mention, these countries are going to, and I actually had written an article I never published about these countries being stuck with these fifth columns of Ukrainians. So they don't want this war to continue. These fifth columns and what's going on in Ukraine is destabilizing Eastern Europe, but that's part of it. That's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, and I mean, this, when you try to think of like what is the situation where I see NATO disintegrating or kind of losing its status, or losing members, which eventually would, over time, would lead to its disintegration. It would be the situations like this, or what we just talked about, these other potential conflicts on the horizon. And so you have the little guys in NATO who are like, we're already feeling suffocated by what's going on right now, and you're talking about these other places. And so NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, may eventually have to switch up and kind of change its name geographically because of what members will stay in it and join, and what members will exit it. So that would be the a huge development. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that these forever, and hope, this is the real cynical take, is I really hope that the American defense establishment doesn't sort of see NATO's a dying dog anyway. We just got to do our thing and just kind of ride this out. And if there's members that want to leave, F it. I really hope that's not the case, but it could be. It really could be, if they want the global forever wars.
It just feels ridiculous. I mean, they've talked about putting Japan into NATO. Literally in the Pacific Ocean. The Pacific Ocean. They've talked about at the NATO summit, they were like, we're going to be ready to pivot to China with the United States. That's why we have to give them this money. That's why we have to bump up to 5%. It's like, this is psychotic. Like, you're now admitting that that the purpose for the NATO creation and expansion was Soviet Union, which doesn't exist anymore. You're still expanding NATO, and now you're openly admitting we're going to pivot to China with NATO.
Well, it occurred to me recently that when AI takes over and puts us all out of work, the only job that'll be available is soldier. I mean, literally, that'll be the only occupation. It's just to go fight a war, because you just can't, because everything else is being done by AI. I mean, that's probably what it's going to be.
Literally. Well, I think we've gotten through everything that I wanted to get through. The skies in Iran, above Iran, are clearing for some reason, so we'll keep you guys posted on that. But what do you have any other closing thoughts for today?
No, I think that was it. We'll see what there's supposed to be a big announcement coming tomorrow, right?
Yeah, Lindsey Graham has Trump has a big announcement, as cued by Lindsey Graham.